The next big thing, the newest meta vehicles and the future of War Thunder is something talked about all the time. From the Su-35 to the F-15EX and 5th generation fighters, to the M1A2 SEP V3 Abrams, the Leopard 2A7, and the T-90M Arena, these are all tanks or planes that are talked about within the player base whenever they talk about additions they want to War Thunder. But the real question that everyone doesn't ask is really what is unique or special about these vehicles. What is going to make these vehicles shift up the top tier meta? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the biggest misconceptions about these vehicles and why War Thunder's future is different than what most people think it will be. Okay, so first, we have to understand what makes the War Thunder meta. Well, a combination of new vehicles with either new missiles, radars, rounds, or armor are really what changes or shifts the top tier meta. But the thing that really defines meta vehicles are not the actual vehicles themselves, but the armament and armor changes within them. So, you can look at some of the most recent additions and you can see that the planes and tanks really don't change much, but what actually changes is the armament themselves. Many examples that can be seen in game are things like the F-18s from the C to the E variant with only 2 more missiles, but an upgrade to the AIM-120 C5 to the AIM-120D. The F-16 Pobit going from the C variant, which only carried AIM-120As, to the F-16 Pobit, which carried AIM-120Ds and an ASA radar. The Su-30 SM and SM-2 has a minor difference in radar, with an increased search degree from 40 to 200 degrees, as well as getting a pretty substantial engine upgrade. The J-10 and J-10C are not much different from each other either, with the C only getting an ASA radar and 2 more PL-12s, and of course the PL-12As, but those aren't really much different. The Abrams only really changed the round that it got at top tier, as well as the recent change with the volumetric armor within the turret ring itself, and the T-90M recently got a variant with the Arena M APS system, but no major difference between the T-90M and the T-90M Arena. So, really, the new variants don't shift the top tier meta at all, but what gets added with them does. So, what can we expect the next meta-defining plane to be? Well, we actually have to look at what the future planes will bring into the game, allowing them to define this new top-tier meta. So, let's get into it. Well, the J-16 and Gripen E would bring the ECM system to the game, allowing for maybe the J-15 also to get ECM. The F-15EX would potentially bring an upgraded version of the AIM-120D, with potentially the AIM-120D-3. The next upgrade would be the Su-35, bringing the R-77M to the Russian tech tree. And then to balance out those new BVR AAM missiles, we would see things like the Meteor get added for the Gripen, the Eurofighter, and the Rafale. The J-16 would also get the PL-15. Now, for IR missiles, we would see Raytheon's AIM-9X, the MBDA Mika IR, the Chinese PL-10, the Russian R-73M, or potentially the R-74M, and the IRST. For ground, I don't believe there's much more to add due to us basically being at the most modern state of tanks. Maybe an upgraded Leo and like an additional depleted uranium round, but I'm not sure that that would come due to the difficulty in coding and the lack of information there is about it in real life. Well, we talked about the things that they could add, but what would this change in the game? Well, the upgraded BVR AAM missiles would shift the meta to reinforce the Eurofighter's spot as the best top tier vehicle. Now, in my opinion, the F-15EX and J-16 would most likely sit right below those Eurofighters, and then the post-production variant of the Gripen, with the Rafale falling mightily down behind the Gripen, and then the Su-35. So, not really a dramatic shift in the meta, but a few new planes that will take the top. And again, this is all my opinion. Okay, so now time for the misconception part of it, that vehicles change the meta. Well, this just really isn't true. It's the armament that defines and shapes the meta of the game. Top tier vehicles only really require a decent airframe, and the armament does most of the heavy lifting. For example, when you look at the F-18s, you have a really good armament, but a really bad airframe. And then you can go look at something like the Rafale, which has a really good airframe and really good armament, making it the second best top tier vehicle. So, with that being said, when you hear about new planes or hyped planes to come to the game, I want you to think, why is it hyped? How is it going to shift the top tier meta instead of just kind of following what other people say? Now, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.